So I'm going to take a few moments here to respond to and just share my thoughts in regards to Alex's views on the meaning of life and the purpose of life, and some of his generalizations when it comes to religion and what religion has to offer from this perspective. So let me play the clip for you.
Where do you derive, or rather, how do you derive meaning in your life whilst being philosophically consistent? Let's see how the answers match. Go for it.
Interesting. I think I can maybe predict something along the lines of what Stephen said, because I think we more or less agree now. It's very similar to the place where I get my morality from, which is to say that I can't necessarily objectively ground meaning in anything, but I can say that if I can't do it, then neither can you, regardless of whether you believe in a God or not. We can't help but desire certain things as part. It's kind of, as Stephen once described it, an axiomatic part of our nature, that we have no choice but to desire our pleasure. We have no choice but to have other people's pleasure as a derivative of that, and therefore have a sense of morality. Now, that might not be philosophically groundable, but if it's not grounded in me, then it's not grounded in God either.
So I have to commend Alex here. He's being honest, and this is something that I've noticed about him over the years. He is someone that's brave enough to acknowledge what's true from the perspective of atheism. He acknowledges very clearly that there is no objective grounding for the purpose of life or the meaning of life on atheism. And in many cases, I've seen this throughout his videos and over the years, that sometimes this has meant that he has had to go against his atheist friends to do this. So that's extremely commendable, and I really respect him for this. But now the problem here, or the problem begins when he starts to put religion and God into the same basket. He follows up by saying that you can't objectively ground meaning without God or with God. Now, this is slightly problematic from the Islamic perspective. And here's a simple retort to that. We believe in God, who is the creator of everything that exists. We don't believe in a deistic conception of God. We don't believe that there is a cause, whatever the nature of this cause is. He set everything in motion, created everything, and let it be. We believe in teleology. We believe that God is the creator. He has many names and attributes. For example, he's the all-knowing, the wise, the all-wise, the all-powerful, the most loving, etc. And we believe that God created everything, created the universe, created human beings, and created things with a clear and defined purpose. That is something that God outlines in the Quran in regards to our life, in regards to the world around us, etc. So for example, in the Quran, God makes it abundantly clear that He created us to know Him and to worship Him. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Very clearly. And the entire, you can argue, the entire message of the Quran revolves around this reality. But that's the first thing I wanted to clarify. From the Islamic perspective, we believe in God, who is the creator, and He creates things with purpose. And He created us with a purpose. And if He created us, and He created us with a purpose, well, then that purpose is objective. That is the true purpose of our existence. Let's move on to the second part of the clip.
The idea that if you let go of God, if you let go of religion, then your life is devoid of meaning is a hypocritical statement coming from those who believe in the one thing that I think takes meaning out. It's often said that being an atheist is something that will take away meaning, but religion is the enemy of meaning. There's nothing that is more evocative of Sisyphus pushing his rock up the endless mountain than an eternity in heaven. Time is like a fabric that thins out the more you stretch it. People talk about time being spent. I think the terminology is right there, because you can consider it like a currency. For a man who has $1 billion, a single dollar is worth absolutely nothing. And for a person who has an eternity of days ahead of them, a single day is worth nothing too. The only truly meaningless life, I think, is one that fails to recognize the urgency and the limitation of our days.
Now, this is a terrible, terrible generalization on the part of Alex. He seems to have taken all religions and put them into the same basket. Again, from the Islamic perspective, and this is why I really encourage Alex and other atheists to really look into Islam, beyond the media narratives that are out there, and really see what Islam has to say. Now, in regards to this life and the next life, Alex's point is, well, look, and he gives the analogy of someone that's really rich, billionaire, he has billions of dollars. What is the value of $1? So what he's trying to say here is that, look, for someone that believes in an eternal afterlife, and that means that they'll go on forever, perpetually. Well, what is the value of this life? Because you have forever. But from the atheist perspective, according to him, well, you only have this life and nothing comes after that. Therefore, life is extremely valuable from that perspective. Now, I grant him on the surface, it's a good point. However, again, from the Islamic perspective, it doesn't really add up, because he's not appreciated here, and he's generalized this, he's not appreciated the dynamic, the relationship between this life and the next life from the perspective of Islam. This life in relation to the next life is like a springboard. It's an opportunity for the human being to attain the hereafter. What's going to be carried forward with you in the next life are your deeds in this life. And God gives, the whole Quran is guidance in regards to how you should live, how you should act, what you should do. And it's what you do in this life, how you act, how you live, that determines whether you get hell or paradise. So now from this perspective, this life that we live from an Islamic perspective is far more significant now, even more so. Because we know it's what happens in these 50, 60, 70 years that determines our hereafter. So it doesn't, Islam, just because we believe in an afterlife, it does not take away anything from this life. If anything, from the Islamic perspective, it makes it far more significant. So just to correct his analogy, from the Islamic perspective, it's like saying a person still has $6 in his pocket. But how he uses those $6 determines whether he becomes a billionaire or not. That would be the more correct way of looking at it from the Islamic perspective. Sure, from the atheist perspective, you can say, well, you only have 50, 60 years on this earth. And therefore there's nothing that comes after that, and therefore it makes sense that you should probably try to make the most of it. But if you really sit down and think about it, what does that even mean? Right? We're just one big random accident. Our lives, the world around us, well, what significance do we have to just continue, even for the next day? Why should we even continue for another day? This is something else, obviously Alex is probably aware of, something that the existentialist philosophers have discussed to great lengths, and they try to provide some sort of coherent way of looking at meaning and purpose from the perspective of atheism, generally speaking. But anyway, there's something for you guys to look into further. One thing I wanted to say to Alex and other atheists watching this, don't generalize, please, especially when it comes to Islam. Don't put Islam into the same basket as every other religion when you're trying to make certain points. Look into Islam and look into it sincerely. Study it, look at what it has to say. And I'm sure, especially Alex, I'm sure that when you look into it and you really study it, you will see the coherence of the Islamic worldview. You will see how everything adds up and how Islam accounts for every aspect of life in a very beautiful and profound way. I leave you guys with this. Until next time, take care. Assalamu alaikum.